Before there were dedicated servers, we as the players pretty much were the servers. A player's gaming device of choice was responsible for taking the role of a host and having players connect into their system. The host or leading player was in charge of setting up the game however they wanted to, and the guest or clients had to just play along with whatever ground rules was set. This can be a good thing or a very bad thing. Decades later, developers decided to build dedicated servers for players to connect to. Nowadays, the devs are in charge of hosting and setting up the game however they want to, and all the players just have to play along with whatever ground rules have been set by the devs. This can be a good thing or a very bad thing. One option gives the players freedom but has security issues. The other option provides a fixed and mostly balanced set of rules made by the developers, but has security issues to a lesser extent. Despite my age and the generation I'm associated with, I like to see myself as an old man in a teenager's body. I'm old school. I still prefer LAN parties over online play any day, and despite the unfortunate and degenerate security issues as well as connection issues, I also still appreciate peer-to-peer matchmaking. This brings me to custom servers or private lobbies. Private or custom matches, to me, are still some of the best online multiplayer experiences I've ever had. Whether it's for the sake of playing exclusively with people you know, or to straight up use the multiplayer sandbox to create brand new unofficial game modes. Some games these days don't even support custom or private lobbies these days, let alone LAN play. Games like Drive Club, back when it was still online, had private lobbies that I spent hours and nights in. I remember having F1 tournaments with BAC monos on street circuits with the maximum lap count, and all of us in a PlayStation party having the time of our lives. I remember playing custom matches of Rainbow Six Siege, doing all-nighters during the pandemic. Whether we were just competing against each other or messing around in the tactical sandbox, coming up with our own game modes and taking advantage of the game's framework and design. There's this warm and freeing feeling about custom matches that gets my dopamine running. A sense of unity and playing by your own rules, essentially making your own new content that's more fun than the base game. But not everything is all sunshine and rainbows. And peer-to-peer servers sometimes require one thing: knowing the server host or the players within it. Old Battlefield servers have this trend of so-called badmins or bad admins. Server hosts that are a bunch of sore losers and take everything way too seriously. You've got twice as many kills as everyone else in the server, the host will kick you. You hit a super lucky shot or clutch up in a tight shootout, you're hacking. You disobey one stupid rule or restriction that wasn't explicitly told, server drama. And this trend is eating all the Battlefield games alive. But enough of this long prologue, let's begin the first episode of a two-part video essay series where I cover the beauty and safe haven of online multiplayer games. These two videos are ones that I've been planning in some way or another since I started doing video essays about 3 years ago. I finally figured out what to do with these video ideas, and I finally have the skill set and sense of direction to flesh these videos out. Let's begin with part 1, the beauty of custom matches. When a game gives me the tools and the sandbox to experiment to my heart's content, I'm going to experiment beyond my heart's content. I'm going to find alternate ways of achieving an objective or different things to mess around with. It's one of the reasons I love the Hitman series so much. Multiplayer as a game mode already adds a bit of dynamic gameplay and longevity compared to linear single player games. But when you take the multiplayer game mode and experiment with different things, you end up with nearly endless amounts of content, sometimes beyond what the game offers. You can even end up changing the game. Ever heard of Speed Siege in Rainbow Six Siege? Thanks to Racervic, I was able to try this mode out myself with a few buddies, and it was nothing more than a blast. Siege is a slower paced tactical shooter. It's a game of suspense, skill, and patience. But what if you take the tactical template and design of Siege and switch up the gameplay to match that of an arena shooter? That's what Speed Siege is. Playing a tactical shooter as an arena shooter adds a whole new level of intensity, adrenaline rush, and playstyle. And with the map design, you might even end up manipulating the maps in ways you would have never done in a regular Siege match. Only problem with Siege's template is a lack of respawns during a single round. Rounds end very quickly in Speed Siege, meaning most of your time will be spent waiting for the next round. But even then, that might motivate you to try and stay alive a little bit longer next time. I recently came across a Killzone multiplayer fan, and we were looking back on fun memories about Killzone 2's multiplayer. And he mentioned playing private lobbies with RPGs only. And I thought to myself, why the hell didn't I try that when servers were still up? You see, RPGs are very underutilized within the Killzone series. I kinda forgot about them. But even though they were underutilized, they felt very powerful and fun to use in Killzone 2's campaign. So when he said that, I could imagine the absolute chaos and fun that could have been. And I was kicking myself for not coming up with that idea. That should tell you just how many possibilities and ideas you can come up with in a good multiplayer game with the appropriate tools. Damn, I wish I could have tried this. Some of you might have heard of the term party modes, as some older Call of Duty and Halo games had this as its own public playlist. Speed Siege and RPGs only in Killzone 2 are examples of unofficial party modes. These are modes that are created by the players. Party modes are multiplayer game modes that don't play by the same book as the main game. While Search and Destroy and Capture the Flag is Call of Duty taking itself seriously and competitively, One in the Chamber and Classic, two underrated and forgotten modes in the series, is the game taking itself as a joke. The sad thing about party modes and party games is that they are quickly becoming few and far between, which sucks. It's okay for a single player game to be serious, it is a storytelling component at the end of the day. But 95% of multiplayer games, not co-op, lack a storytelling structure, and 99% of them don't even have lore anymore. Multiplayer games should have some type of permanent game mode, or even better, game modes, that are just meant to be pure fun. No competition, just laughs. Multiplayer games used to have kids coming back from school on a Friday afternoon, hopping onto a server they created, inviting friends to play some fun and wacky game modes. Now everyone is just competing for the next rank in Siege and prestige in Call of Duty. And it's fine for a formula to change, things need to evolve at the end of the day. But if you're gonna remove or just carelessly implement what made multiplayer games so fun, then what the hell is the point of me sticking around? And I do understand that it's not cheap to implement custom or private servers on a dedicated server. But the least you can do is add party modes from the get-go. I want to expand on a little niche of mine. Peer-to-peer matchmaking. Is public peer-to-peer matchmaking the same as public custom matches? Not necessarily. You see, in Blacklight Retribution and Call of Duty's case, peer-to-peer is just another method of keeping a server up and running without devs having to pay money to rent a server that they don't feel is worth it. Otherwise, the layout and overall structure is still set up like a dedicated server with preset ground rules set by the devs themselves. But some games with public or private custom matches can run on a dedicated server, like Rainbow Six Siege and Overwatch. But in the case of Project Cause, Dirtfall and Rally, Killzone, Ratchet & Clank games with PvP multiplayer, and pretty much any fighting game, peer-to-peer matchmaking means that the game's multiplayer runs on custom matches for a living. Every match you get into is controlled by the player hosting it with their preferred settings. Now, like I mentioned before, peer-to-peer can make or break a game's online multiplayer component. The upside being there are still players keeping the game alive, and sometimes, like in Killzone 2's case, there will be events planned where players will host damn near full servers that are public for everyone that uses the game's server revival software or DNS code. Custom matches in most games don't require a specific player count to start a match. For example, they don't require 5 or more players to start a simple match of free-for-all or team deathmatch. You only set a limit to how many players may be in the game and how many players may be on a team. 1v1, 2v2, 5v5, it's all doable. Lastly, peer-to-peer matches are a bit of a safer space to socialize with fellow players in. Depending on which game you play, that is. I found myself making friends with folks in Dead or Alive 5 and Killzone Shadowfall. Friendships that unfortunately never lasted. But things really get going when you or the host invite some friends to the server, and it's like having a LAN party over an online connection. The unity is wonderful. The downside? Well, the downside is a bit more crushing. Number one, first and foremost, the security, or lack thereof. Modders and hackers are what I meant by unfortunate and degenerate security issues. Peer-to-peer matchmaking on a game that's very well known and or has a toxic community is bound to be dominated by a bunch of sad script kiddies with nothing better to do. Call of Duty games on the 360 and especially the PS3 are unplayable because of this. You're better off sticking to creating your own private lobby if you have the people to back you up. All peer-to-peer games without a server browser, for some reason, are pretty much dead because of this. Another problem is connectivity issues. Some games with and without server browsers allow you to filter and select a specific region to find servers in. This vastly decreases the chances of you joining a match where you or the host's connection is having an episode of its own. But depending on how populated your game of choice is, you might be forced to join a server with a crappy connection anyways. It's the hard and unfortunate truth. Lastly, the game is just dead, and you've got no one to join you in your loneliness. Although that's not just exclusive to peer-to-peer. Custom matches are a blessing and a curse. They can make or break a game. You can end up having the time of your life, or the most miserable. But from my experience, an experience that has mostly seen the brighter side of custom matchmaking and online play, I can end this video off by saying that custom matchmaking is a gift to be appreciated. They're not as common as we might think anymore. Almost every new online multiplayer game has matchmaking with preset modes and settings that the devs have control over. It's their rules, their structure. Custom servers are expensive for games with dedicated servers, and also risk dividing the community if done well. I understand the risks and, in some cases, the lack of value in custom matches, but it's still a shame. Private or custom lobbies are a breath of fresh air. They're freeing and they're fun. It's a playground with the tools of the respective game. Whether to use the tools solely for the purpose of playing the game within your own social circle, or to utilize those tools to the game's limits, enhancing and expanding the playground. There's a beauty in the unity. There's a beauty in the creativity. There's a beauty in the private lobby, and the overall beauty behind the concept and execution of custom matches. Sup folks, like I mentioned at the end of that long intro, this is the first part or episode of a 2-part mini-series of analysis videos, where I look at my favorite aspects of online gaming. I really hope this video wasn't too niche, too complicated, too repetitive, or too short. This is a video that I've been planning for a long while. I've rewritten it, I've scrapped it so many times, and this is the best I could come up with. I personally think it came out good, but I'm a sucker for this type of stuff anyway, so I need an outside perspective. If you enjoyed the video, hopefully you're looking forward to part 2. The idea of part 2 is actually something I've been meaning to make into a video around the time of the infamous video remake. But because I was so focused on other script ideas, I had to put it to the sidelines. And when this mini-series is over, I have an exciting video on the way. It's a very interesting one, both conceptually and the behind-the-scenes story of it. The video is actually inspired by a script that I just recently scrapped, because I couldn't make it as interesting as I originally intended. I've had the script 90% finished for about a year now, but I just felt like a lot of what I wrote was just incompetent filler, and that script just didn't feel like it was moving the way I hoped. But this video is a much more interesting variation of that scrapped video idea, and I cannot wait to share it. Lastly, the Mirror's Edge and Battlefield videos are still coming. It's just that this has been a super busy and super stressful term for me in terms of school. Assignments and exams left, right, and center, and school's just been kicking my ass, and I had no time to write video essays, screenplays, or work on my music project. I needed all the rest and downtime I could get. But since I'm on holiday, I'm writing more than ever because I actually have time for it, which means that these videos should be coming out a bit sooner. Until the second part or episode of this mini-series sees the light of day, everyone stay safe, stay entertained, take care, and take it easy. Cheers.
Make friends with the B-side, then relax on the G-side. All this pain in the low end, when you stream, are you no 10? I'll be your African omen, cause the Queensway Syndicate been taking the potion. We don't feel love for these tape heads, sell these drugs to your tape decks. Yeah, I'm a menace, boy, but my Bandcamp page is your fetish, boy. I've been riding alone, now